GALP.
Hey guys, and welcome to Get Life Podcast. And you're like, oh my god, Bish, what's going on? You're doing episodes again. Yes, we're doing episodes again, and we're going in ham today because we've got a special guest from Koei Tecmo. And no, it's not Nathan, it's Master.
Hey, what's going on, man?
How are you, by the way? The last time we had Master on was 9 years ago. He's an OG on the podcast.
Yeah, old school.
Old school indeed. I mean, last we had you on, you were not working for Koei. You were actually, you were a professional gamer, no? You were competing.
Yeah, I was competing. I was a competitor, I guess, in the esports or fighting game space at the time.
Before I really want to get into the main topic of discussion, I just wanted to know, how does it feel to be, playing their games and now working for them?
I think it's always unreal to me. It doesn't always sink in, but then whenever I sit back, during questions like these, I'm just like, wow, how did we get here? You know what I mean? How did we get here? But I'm always thankful and grateful for the opportunities that have come my way and to be able to go from, esports professional, competitor, fan, and basically industry professional now to be able to have the opportunity to be a part of the team with Team Ninja over here.
Before we get into the main topic of discussion, I just wanted to thank our sponsors, Japan Crate, Crunchyroll. Hear those ads later on. What are we here to talk about today? We're talking about Ninja Gaiden Master Collection with Master. What a coincidence.
Yes, it's quite the coincidence, actually. It's pure coincidence.
To get into this a little bit more, what is the Ninja Gaiden Master Collection for those that don't know?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ninja Gaiden Master Collection is a collection of 3 fast-paced action games that were originally released back in 2005. So you have Ninja Gaiden Sigma, you have Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2, and you have Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge. So you get those 3 games in the Ninja Gaiden Master Collection, basically one package. If you like difficult games, it tends to be a difficult game, but it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of different weapons and techniques that you can do in there, but it's based off of, the original Ninja Gaiden. If anybody listening to the podcast right now is part of those original times back in the old school days, it's still the same franchise.
Is there anything that's updated for the modern consoles? Just because I've noticed that the game is on modern consoles now. It's on the Switch, on the PS4, Xbox One, PC. Has anything changed graphically or any game mechanics, or is it just pure essence of Ninja Gaiden?
Yeah, it's more so the pure essence of Ninja Gaiden. It's obviously capable of displaying in 4K displays as well, depending on the platform you're on. There's been some small tweaks here and there, but it's basically, we wanted to deliver these 3 games in one complete package on all current consoles. So it's pretty cool because I know there was a lot of fans that were talking about man, I wish I can play these games on the current consoles. I always have to reconnect my old consoles to try to play these games, and now you can literally play it on the PS4, PS5 via backwards compatibility, the Xbox One, Xbox Series of consoles because of backwards compatibility, the Switch, and for the first time ever on PC. So I personally like playing it on PC because I'm doing a lot of stuff on PC in general, so it's easy to just jump into. So it's just available on all platforms now.
See, I didn't even know that these games never got released on the PC before. I would have assumed so, but it's nice to see that Koei Tecmo is actually publishing more on the PC, which is great. Going into it, the games, from what I know, they are in obviously chronological order. They follow this overarching story of Ninja Gaiden. But one thing that I wanted to know, what is your favorite Ninja Gaiden game in this collection?
In this collection, I love all of them. I love all of them. So I know everybody's going to assume that that's kind of the easy answer. The reality is I do enjoy all of them. Each one has their own charm. But I will say that the first one in the collection is probably my favorite one of the 3. But I do enjoy a lot, more than what people would think. Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge, there's something about the combat mechanics on that game that's just not possible in the other ones, and I enjoy the combat so much on that one. But I think the first one has a little bit of everything that makes me like that one the most, you know what I'm saying? But if I could somehow, some way merge that combat with the first one, that'd be the ultimate one. But I definitely like 1 the most.
You know what? I'll be honest with you, and Koei, I'm sorry for saying this, but I did not really like 1 the most. My favorite.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
You know why? It's because the game for me is too hard. I'm the kind of person that I play a lot of Shinsan Goku Musou, Dynasty Warriors, Samurai Warriors. So I'm used to that level of combat, and I'm used to pulling off combos quite easily. But in this game, because I received the press list, and in the press list, it's telling you, how do you do these moves? How you do an Azuna drop? How do you do all of this? And I'm like, I can't do all of these button combinations. I was freaking out. I was just like, no, this is impossible for me. And I feel that Razor's Edge, because it is a more modern game compared to Sigma or Sigma 2, it just felt more modern, felt a lot easier to pull off combos.
Well, one thing that Razor's Edge has that is very similar to Sigma 2 is that they have, both those games have obliteration technique. And basically what that is when you delimb one of your opponents, you have an option to do a strong attack, which leads to basically like a short little cutscene of you know, obliterating your enemy. And both those games have that. So maybe you just got used to doing it a little bit more frequently on part 3 than part 2. And you definitely didn't do it in part 1. So that might have made you feel like it was doing it for you a little bit.
On part 1, I'm so ashamed to say this, but when you play on the easiest difficulty, it's a lot more difficult to die in the game. I don't know if it makes you invincible, but there are certain things like auto block, especially if you're playing on like the easier difficulties. I was still doing that. I felt like it was punishing me. I was like, I can't handle. But I'm not gonna lie to you, it is fantastic, especially the scenery in the game. Like for me, that was the first time experiencing the quote-unquote origin of Ninja Gaiden. Yes, there have been games that were released in the past in terms of the NES and Super Nintendo and stuff like that, but in terms of the modern Ninja Gaiden trilogy, this was my first introduction into that.
I mean, they're traditionally known for hard games. It's kind of its reputation.
It does that perfectly, I'm not gonna lie to you. One of the other reasons why I like Razor's Edge is because, fun fact, that was the first game that Koei gave us a review code.
Oh wow.
So it means a lot to me. Back then it wasn't even review codes, they used to send out discs. That was the first time any games company, not even just Koei, any games company gave me a game to review, and it was Razor's Edge. I kind of feel that level of nostalgia because I remember playing Razor's Edge and I was like, oh my god, this game is amazing. Like, having never played a Ninja Gaiden game before, I was like, what is this? This is so cool. Like, as you mentioned, this whole obliteration techniques. I think that was the only game that I was able to do the Azuna drop in. I was just like, oh my god, this is just so beautiful as a game. But also the fact that you can have like all these different weapons. I know you can in the other games as well, in Sigma and Sigma 2, but there's just something about Razor's Edge. It just cuts better.
Totally understand. That's one of the reasons why I tend to play it more often than the other two, because of the way the combat works. There's something that makes it feel really fluid and it's just enjoyable. It makes you feel like a Super Ninja.
Definitely. I play the game and I just feel as if I can do anything. I know that just sounds really odd, but what this game kind of excels in is the high-speed action. Yes, it is difficult. I know a lot of people listening to this might be like, oh, I don't want to play this game because it's difficult, but I would say give it a try because there's something rewarding about overcoming that difficulty. This episode is just me embarrassing myself constantly in front of someone that, you know, for all intents and purposes, you've been playing Ninja Gaiden for a long time, right? And
right.
I couldn't get past the first boss in Sigma. It took me ages.
Are you talking about the actual boss or the training boss? Everybody considers the training boss to be the Murai, which is the guy with the nunchucks.
Now it's embarrassing because yes, it is him. I couldn't get past him for like 3 hours. I was just like, wow, why is this game doing this to me? But at the same time, it's great to have that learning curve. And yes, I was playing on the easiest difficulty. That's not the point. It teaches you that you have to think different. Like, my gaming background comes from a lot of games where, for all intents and purposes, I like to button mash, right? 100%. Like, even if I'm playing fighting games, right? I mentioned it on the previous episode with you that I just button mash, especially even if I'm playing DOA. So I'm thinking Ninja Gaiden is going to be the same, but no, there is a level of technique. You need to know what you're doing. And when I got that press release with all the combinations, I was just like, nah, I don't need this. I could just button mash and that's fine. No, you do need to know what buttons to press at what time, what weapons to use in what situations, things like that. And that's what I really enjoy about the game. And what I enjoy more so is the fact that I do understand that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be introduced to Ninja Gaiden for the first time through this collection, especially at its price point, because obviously you're getting 3 games for such an amazing price, to be honest with you. So I've noticed that you guys from, you know, Koei Tecmo America and that Team Ninja, you're actually producing content that aims to help people. Like, where did that idea come from? Because it's really rare to see.
Yeah, I'm glad you were able to catch some of that. So the idea was just basically to grasp or kind of give a refresher course to maybe somebody that hasn't played it in so long. These games, again, haven't been out for several years. You know, you're talking about over 10 years. And in some cases, because they haven't been released in such a long time, some people may not have been old enough to play those games back then. So I tossed out an idea of maybe we can put something together real quick and kind of serve as a very, very low-level tutorial to help people understand, what they're getting into and what they can expect. What kind of tools do you have in the game? What makes this game so unique and special? So we introduced or discussed things like, wall running, evading, combos, simple combos, as well as, things that are unique to every game in the trilogy. So regardless of which one you jump into, you have a general idea of what you can expect. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like, okay, this is kind of what it's about. Let me jump in here and give it a try. Not to say that it would automatically make the game easier off the bat. Like it wouldn't just, you could just steamroll through it, but it would help you understand, okay, I remember seeing this in the video that, I should expect this, and how to deal with it a little bit. And then hopefully they take that and take their gaming into the next level.
I'll be real with you, it helped me out a lot, like especially when you mentioned the wall running. The one thing I didn't know how to do initially, and what caused me a lot of problems in Sigma, was how to get out of this pit. Literally, once again, in the first mission, I keep dropping down in this pit after you fight all of these ninjas that come out from nowhere, and I don't know how to get back up. And I was just like, what am I doing? Like, I need to jump on the wall, I need to do this and that, and I genuinely did not know how to do it. And that's actually how I found your videos, was I was searching on the internet, how do I do, like, this is really bad for me to say, but I was searching, I was like, how do I do this? How do I jump in this game? How do I, jump from wall to wall? And then I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw it, and I was like, you know what? Thank whoever who put this out, because it was just excellent. Like, for people like me, especially.
Well, I'm glad it helped somebody out.
You helped me out a lot. I'm not gonna lie. You helped me out a lot, and it saved me a lot of time, I'll be honest with you, because I could not find a single thing on the internet.
That's good. I'm glad that's the purpose of it. The purpose of it is to help, not necessarily the really hardcore. There's a lot of hardcore players of Ninja Gaiden, and so those videos were not intended for that, I guess you can say, demographic. It was intended for the people that are, trying to get back into it or getting into it for the very first time.
100%. That being said, we're just going to go on a little bit of an ad break, and when we return, we're going to talk a bit more about the game, and I don't know what else, but we'll get into it. I'll see you guys on the other side. Before we get into the ads, just want to shout out our coffee page. If you guys want to support the podcast either monthly or through a one-time donation, we really do appreciate it, because coffee doesn't take a fee, so all of the amount of money that you're going to be donating goes straight to us. So that's really awesome. We do have goals set up on there, like for podcast equipment, for artwork and things like that. So anything you donate is going to go straight back into making this podcast a better experience, a better show. We will be using it correctly, so I will assure you that. So that is ko-fi.com/GetAlivePodcast. Thank you, and back onto the ads. Now it's a better time than ever to be an anime fan with Crunchyroll, that has the world's largest anime collection. You can watch new episodes 1 hour after they air in Japan, enjoy access to unlimited ad-free anime, read hundreds of chapters across dozens of manga titles, and save with exclusive Crunchyroll store discounts. So if you guys go to crunchyroll.com/kunai, that's crunchyroll.com/kunai, for your 14-day free trial of Crunchyroll Premium service. Remember, you guys, we love Crunchyroll. We use them on Kunai. I personally love them. I personally use them all the time. We've been going to Crunchyroll events for a long time sponsor of the podcast. And you know what? They are the best place to watch anime legally online, with over 30,000 episodes. And at the moment, if you're listening to this, they've got the largest fall lineup in history for fall 2022, with over 40 simulcasting titles. That is insane. So join Crunchyroll with our link, crunchyroll.com/kunai, for 14-day free trial. In addition to that, you've got different perks with your premium service. You can either go with your mega fan, you can go with fan service, or your mega fan for 12 months. Personally, the biggest savings that you're going to make is if you do your mega fan option. If you live in the UK, that's only £60 a year. That's VAT inclusive. That's cheaper than any streaming service at the moment, especially if you're into anime. You got all your anime pretty much in one place. That's no ads, unlimited access to the Crunchyroll library, new episodes 1 hour after they air in Japan for your simulcasts, access to your digital manga, streaming on 4 devices at the same time, as well as offline viewing. You would not believe how many times offline viewing has saved me. Beyond the tube, there's no Wi-Fi, there's no 5G. I'm like, I want to watch anime. Boom! I'm watching Overlord. I'm watching Dr. Stone. I'm watching Naruto. I'm watching DBZ. You've got it all on Crunchyroll. So that's crunchyroll.com/kunai. That's crunchyroll.com/KUNAI. Back onto the episode. Okay, we are back with Master from Team Ninja. That's amazing to even say that, because last time you were on the podcast, like I mentioned, you're just a professional player, but to work for Team Ninja obviously must be such an honor for you. What's your job title, if you can say, at Team Ninja? Like, what do you do on a daily basis?
Yeah, sure. So my job title is community manager for Team Ninja Studio, which is the development team within Koei Tecmo. So I engage and communicate with the community generally via social media. Obviously, during these kind of crazy times in the world, everybody's kind of doing everything online. But yeah, so I communicate, try to develop the communities and communicate and see what they're talking about. You know, what is it they really enjoy from our games that are coming out. And obviously, in this case, we're talking about Ninja Gaiden, so they talk about, you know, what they really enjoy, some of the history, their memories, what they like, what they don't like. And I try to take a lot of that data directly from the community and share it to the team. I always say that I'm sort of that bridge between community and developer, and my goal is to always help the community in any way that I can. So I think that's the idea, is to be, you know, very helpful, be very patient with the community. There's fans of different types, and their passionate levels are on different, you know, levels essentially, and you try to see what everyone's talking about and take that information and share it with the team, while also posting, you know, some engaging things like the videos that you encountered yourself to hopefully, you know, play the game, but also, you know, maybe some helpful tips, you know, that people may not have ever known that the game had, you know, so things that kind of keep people talking about the game and engaged.
How difficult do you think it is as a community manager to kind of get people engaged? Because there have been cases in which, as you mentioned, there are a lot of the community that may have not been players of Ninja Gaiden, for example. They might have gotten in through, you know, a different game. Maybe they might have played Dead or Alive and they saw Ryu Hayabusa and it was like, oh, where did he come from? I'm going to play the Ninja Gaiden game. How do you sort of manage that versus, you know, the hardcore Ninja Gaiden fans that were playing it since, you know, probably the Super Nintendo days?
Well, I think what's interesting is the hardcore players are always, you know, active and showing new tips and different ways of like trying to break down the game, and I think that's always helpful to everybody in the community. I've always been a big, strong advocate about sharing information with others to hopefully grow the community. For the, you know, the new players, it's always about trying to see, you know, how can they get used to, you know, the games and understand the games, what the background is and everything. It's sort of just, you know, kind of like letting them know, you know, what this game is about. And it's always about, you know, trying to see what they're really into, because Ninja Gaiden is a very specific game. You know, it's a very fast action-based game, hack and slash. And as you know, it's not necessarily a game that you just go in there and just push the same button over and over. You have to kind of understand what are the combinations and whatnot. So I think it's trying to translate all that information and hopefully help the newcomers understand what makes this game so unique, because the more you get into it, the more you start to understand, wow, there is a lot of freedom to this game, or these set of games that makes them unique, or as to why there's this cult following about, like, you know, Ninja Gaiden being one of the OG of gaming.
The thing is, right, because I've known a lot of people in which they don't know what Ninja Gaiden's about, right? They're like, oh, okay, that was that old game on the NES, right? Especially now because of the re-release on the Nintendo Switch Online service, you know, you can play these older games on your Switch as well, so, which is fantastic. So a lot of people are kind of coming in from that end. Do you feel as though that they might be a bit shocked if they decide to play, you know, the more modern games, the more 3D games?
You mean they're going to be shocked in comparison to maybe the original?
Yeah,
NES
into
games?
the original. Do you think that they might be like, oh, I didn't expect that? Or how would you say would be a best way for them to cope if they've played the original and then going on to the more 3D environment? Because it's always a shock going from 2D side-scrolling to 3D environment.
Right. I think the way these games were developed and created, they were done in a way that they feel timeless, honestly. So even though they may be coming, let's just say the last Ninja Gaiden game was a 2D side-scroller game that they played. When they come into the 3D world, game feels very fluid. You never feel like something's off about it. Very rare when you have those feelings. So I would just encourage just jumping into it, even though maybe they're just used to side-scrolling games. But I would say just jump into it, give it a shot. And even the old school games back in the NES days, they were pretty difficult. So I think if they could withstand those games, I think they'll be okay on this one as well.
I mean, I used to play a long time ago. I used to play the older Ninja Gaiden games, and you know what? I kind of felt that they were a lot easier than this. And that's saying a lot. That's saying a lot. Because at least with the 2D, you kind of end up learning the patterns of the bosses and stuff like that. And I know it's the same thing when you're transitioning into 3D, but I don't think I've kind of caught up with that yet. It's going to take me a little bit more time, but I will tweet out when I finish the game or when I finish a boss. I'm like, guys, I just beat this guy, you know? Like, I'm going to get really hyped for that. But because for me, it's not just, oh, this game is challenging, move on. There is a level of reward, as I mentioned before, to that. I just feel good about myself, you know? We did mention before that, you know, this game is backwards compatible on PlayStation 5 and the Xbox series of consoles. Did you ever think we'd ever get that? Because for me, looking at this announcement, that came out of nowhere. I was, whoa, I'm not complaining. I'm like, yes, I'm glad. But it was just nice to see. And being that community manager, when the game was announced, what was the feedback from, you know, the fans and the community?
Overall, it was overwhelmingly positive, honestly. There was a lot of excitement. It did get them out of the blue. I think if I remember correctly, our first initial announcement or our first reveal of it was on the Nintendo Direct with Nintendo. And I remember myself looking through channels on YouTube, and I'm not sure how many content creators will be, you know, paying attention here, but I remember going through different channels on YouTube as well as Twitter and different platforms, just seeing people's reaction, because people have reaction videos. And I remember seeing some and just smiling, seeing how excited they were, because one, they were like, they would have one of two responses. One of the reactions would be like, oh yes, finally I get to play these games again. You know, these are like my childhood favorites, you know? And then the other reaction would be, I've never had a chance to play these games. I am so happy they're here, you know? And I can't help but smile at that, because that's good. I mean, it's the Ninja Gaiden franchise is so well known and so well respected that when you announce it, or like the way we did, and have those types of reaction, it's good to have that, you know. And so it was very positive when we made the initial reveal of the game.
And you know what? It being in a Nintendo Direct is, I would say, one of the best decisions, I mean, Koei and Nintendo could have made, because that's just huge. I mean, obviously Ninja Gaiden started on the Nintendo to begin with, so you're going to get a lot of fans from that point, and also the fact that the Direct is just huge anyway. But that shocked me, because I don't know, I was watching Nintendo Direct, I can't remember what order it was, but then there was the announcement for Samurai Warriors 5, which knocked me straight down. I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm a big fan of Samurai Warriors, but straight after we got the Ninja Gaiden one, I was just like, whoa, Koei, what are you guys doing? You're just making me go crazy. I was just really happy, and it's a good thing that you mentioned that. But I really want to know about you, because you mentioned this game is a lot of people's childhood favorite. How did you get into the series? Because we didn't speak about that last time.
I got into the Ninja Gaiden series through Nintendo as well, just like a lot of people back in the day. My brother was a big fan of those hardcore type of games. Ninja Gaiden happened to be one of the harder ones, and I just got into it that way, and that's how I knew about Ninja Gaiden. And later on played obviously the modern ones, and I'm playing the crap out of, you know, this Master Collection right now. So without trying to date myself, I've played it since back then.
All right, I'm not gonna reveal your age or anything like that, but I mean, it's still nice, the fact that you've been with this franchise since you're, you know, a young lad, and you're kind of growing up with it, and to some extent, I mean, your career is kind of built around it. Like, even back in the day with your, you know, professional gaming and stuff, if I'm not mistaken, in Dead or Alive, you mained Hayabusa, right?
Yeah, that's the character I'm very well known for, and so it's just kind of all interesting how it's all come together.
Yeah, I mean, there's no such thing as a coincidence, in my opinion, but it's fantastic. One thing that I want to know, we did mention from the beginning that there is, you know, the game has the original essence of the, you know, original releases of these games, but I've noticed also that you don't just get these games and that's it. There is additional content that's included that you may have not have had for the original releases, right? Whether that is game modes, additional game modes, or DLC costumes and things like that. And if I'm not mistaken, even some characters as well. Care to talk about that?
Yeah, so basically when these games came out originally, there was additional DLC that came with them, you know, after release from their original release of the game. So basically in this collection, you get all that content all bundled in this package. On top of that, there's a few extra modes that were not a part of the original ones that are also included in the game. So it's kind of like a nice surprise to some people that have never played those modes from the series. And again, you get it all part of this whole pack.
Care to talk about those modes?
Yeah, so there's like the race mode on Ninja Gaiden Sigma, and as well as hero mode wasn't originally included in some of the games. So hero mode being the kind of the easiest difficulty to start off with.
That's the mode I was playing.
Yeah, if you're just trying to get through the story, see what it's all about, and not die too much, that's the mode that you would go for. So some of them didn't have that, so those were included to help, newcomers to the franchise that picking it up for the very first time.
That was interesting for me because you mentioned that not dying all the time, right? Or not dying too much. Even on hero mode, you can still die. I'll be the first one to say that because that's happened to me a lot, right? It's not like invincible mode, right?
Right. So you still have the capability of dying in those modes, but the idea is not to make you feel so pressured. And on top of that, there's characters like Momiji and Rachel and Kasumi. They all come out in their respective games that they were originally introduced in. So if they were introduced, let's say as an example for Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2, then you would have the ability to play as Rachel and Momichi in some of the special modes, like the tag modes that they have on there. And same would apply for Razor's Edge, where Kasumi makes her debut essentially in the Ninja Gaiden franchise in that game. So you can play her in the trials or the chapter challenges, which I really like the chapter challenges. And I think a lot of people may not be aware of this. In chapter challenges is basically you can go through the whole game or story, I should say, with Ryu Hayabusa and enjoy the game and the story. But what chapter challenges does is give you the opportunity to go through those exact same chapters or stages in the game with the character you prefer with. And although you don't get all the cutscenes, you're still going through the same path that Hayabusa went through, except with the character that you prefer.
See, that's the thing. I've noticed that's a kind of theme that's recurring through a lot of Koei games. I mean, for those that are listening, a lot of the people that listen are big fans of like Dynasty Warriors and Samurai Warriors, and that's kind of a feature that's in those games as well. They refer to it as free mode. Basically, you can play as the character that you choose, even if they weren't in that original story. So it's nice to see that coming in, especially with Kasumi. I didn't even know, by the way, this is how clueless I am, right? I always thought that Kasumi was, from that franchise. I didn't know that she wasn't. I thought she was from Ninja Gaiden.
From Ninja Gaiden?
Yeah.
Actually, she's not originally from Ninja Gaiden, but she appears briefly in Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2, and then she actually comes out as a playable character in Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge. But yeah, she's a part of a different franchise, a fighting game franchise that the timelines do kind of cross in some sense, so that's why she's part of the Ninja Gaiden. Her sister has been a part of the Ninja Gaiden franchise since the very beginning, which is Ayane.
Ayane, yeah. Ayane, my favorite character in like all of the games, because you know what? Forgive me, I'm gonna say this. She's a badass. She's amazing.
Oh, absolutely. She is amazing.
I'll be real with you. Like, even from the beginning, like, I kind of squealed a little bit when I saw, like, Kunai, and we didn't get a reveal from her straight away, because obviously this is, like, the first time I'm playing Sigma. I'm a big fan of Ayane. She threw that little Kunai thing, and then the flowers started spinning on it. I was like, oh my god, is this Ayane? Like, I was just freaking out. It's nice to see these kind of crossovers and to learn the origins of these characters, because there have been so many different games that feature Ryu Hayabusa, whether it is games like Dead or Alive, or even the Muso Orochi series, the Warriors Orochi, right, where he is there, but obviously in a different sense, right? So clearly he is a fan favorite across many different game franchises that Koei kind of operates and creates, right? So it's nice to see the origins, and it's nice to see, that he gets that justice. The fact that this game exists.
No, I think I totally understand what you're saying. I think one of the things is, again, when it was originally revealed, I think a lot of fans of Hayabusa and Ninja Gaiden were very happy because it's like they hadn't heard about Hayabusa for so long, like an actual game for him. So whenever we made the reveal, everybody was like, yes, it's time to see the Super Ninja return in some capacity. You know what I'm saying? So I think a lot of people are feeling the exact same feelings that you're going through right now, and that's good. That's good to hear. That's good to know that interest is there.
Especially for the future. I know that a lot of people are excited to see what's going to happen.
People are just as excited as you are.
Oh yeah, 100%.
In regards to knowing that Ninja Gaiden was announced and that he's getting attention. So that's good. That's good to see that.
You know what the funny thing is, like we mentioned that, I'm being excited about the fact that, we got this collection and whatnot. I'm not going to lie to you. A few months ago, maybe last year, I kind of suggested it. I know it sounds pretty weird, but there's this thing on the podcast, especially with Koei. Every time we have a representative from Koei, or every time we're talking about Koei Tecmo, I always put out there my thoughts and what I want to happen and to see how the universe will react. right? I think we did an episode with a content creator and we were like, this is the games that we want. And we kind of sat down and we kind of made this, we put it out there in the world. And then I think it was, his name is Chris Gildart. Chris actually said, hey, I want to see a remake or remaster of the Ninja Gaiden games. And we got it. So I don't know. Part of me thinks, and this is something that I always say every time we get a community manager on, if you want something, the community managers are there to listen, right? As you mentioned, you're there to bring that feedback back directly, you know, to the developers, to the publishers. So is there any sort of recommendations that you would give the community on how they should ask or how they should contact, not necessarily contact you, but how they should be when they're speaking to you, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always been I guess personally a fan of like people engaging in their purest form, you know, and what I mean by that is basically communicate and just be respectful. But other than that, it's like if there's something that you want to discuss or there's something you want to talk about or there's just something that you want to put out there. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously several different social platforms, whether it be Twitter or Facebook or whatnot, and just post on there, be like, hey, you know, we really like this game, or, you know, or we haven't heard about this, and you can always tag those accounts. And, you know, I'm looking through them, and I'm sure the team is looking through them as well. But I'm definitely a person that's going to be going through a lot of these, you know, tags and replies and whatnot, and looking through that. So just voice on what you like. You know, I think it's important to know what the community is talking about. And I have to mention that the community has been tremendously helpful, and particularly for me in my role, because I communicate with a lot of community members directly, and sometimes it's a large group of people, and they've always been very helpful, rather it be in the Ninja Gaiden community, the Dead or Alive community, as well as the Neo community. So all these communities that I've been involved with in regards to Team Ninja titles have been very helpful. So I appreciate them, and I hope we continue to have a great relationship like that, because I think it helps us both, you know, community and development team.
Before we kind of finish off this episode, we're going to go on another ad break. I'm sorry, there's so many ad breaks, but you know what? It keeps the lights running, so we're going to keep it on there. When we come back, we're going to have a special segment, so let's do that. Okay, before we get into the ads, just want to shout out our coffee page. If you guys want to support the podcast either monthly or through a one-time donation, we really do appreciate it, because coffee doesn't take a fee, so all of the amount of money that you're going to be donating goes straight to us, so that's really awesome. We do have goals set up on there, like for podcast equipment, for artwork and things like that, so anything you donate is going to go straight back into making this podcast a better experience, a better show. We will be using it correctly, so I will assure you that. So that is ko-fi.com/GetAlivePodcast. Thank you, and back onto the ads. Are you a fan of anime and Japanese pop culture? I know I am. So why don't you get your asses down to Sugoimart? All right, that's sugoimart.com. Alternatively, you can use our link getalivepodcast.com/Sugoi. That'll take you to our special link on Sugoimart. That is getalivepodcast.com/SUGOI, and use our code GALP. That is GALP for 15% off on everything on Sugoimart. And you can use the code multiple times if you really love Sugoimart and you're like, hell yeah, I'm gonna go and purchase the best things that Japan has to offer: food and drink, beauty items, collectibles, toys and games. You can actually buy Gunpla from Sugoimart, as well as a lot of things for your home: kitchen appliances, bathroom, bedroom stuff. They've got these really lovely Spy Family campus notebooks. I'm a big fan of stationery, as you guys know, and they've got that there as well. There's some really cool stuff on here. You can also purchase experience sets, which is basically like kits to make matcha, to make onigiri, and they'll provide everything basically. Whatever you want, Sugoimart has got it. They've got a lot of really cool stuff from Japan, and as you guys know, every sort of month or so they give us care package that we show off to you guys, which I think is pretty cool. So they've got really nice stuff included. They also sell Pokemon cards and a lot of genuinely hyped stuff. What we want to do is that we want to find out the weirdest things on the Sugoimart website and get Sugoimart to send them to us. So Sugoimart, if you're listening, let's prepare that. Let's just get the weirdest stuff and send it my way, and we'll talk about it on a episode of Umai. They've got some really, really nice stuff. If you want to get items from Japan quite easily, some really nice quirky items, then you can go to sugoimart.com, use the code GALP for 15% off on your purchase. They've got some really nice stuff, whether you're an anime fan, whether you're a fan of Japanese culture, or even if you're a fan of Disney. They've got a lot of Disney items on there. So experience Japan from the comfort of your own home with Sugoi Mart. Use the code GALP for 15% off. Thank you, Sugoi Mart, for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. And back on to the episode. We are back for this episode, for this special segment. I don't know if you know about it or not. It's something that I like to call the lightning round, where, we're not really going to be talking about the game for the bit. We want to know more about Master, okay? Want to know more about it. So I'll be asking you some questions. Some will be gaming related, some won't be. But we're going to start off on a gaming related question. I really want to test your Ninja Gaiden knowledge, if that makes sense. The knowledge.
Uh-oh.
When did the first Ninja Gaiden game come out?
I'm trying to remember because we posted this. I want to say 1984.
Okay, let me check because I don't know.
You can't question me on things that you don't even know.
I'm the one that's questioning here, not you. You said 1984. Sorry, it's 1988.
Yes. Oh, 1988.
Yeah.
Okay.
The original was
so
in arcades and obviously on the Nintendo Entertainment System.
Yes. I was in the 80s. I knew it was in the 80s.
You knew it was in the 80s, but at the same time, you've kind of revealed your age a little bit. A little bit.
That was just a guess. That does not...
All right. Okay, another one is name... This is really difficult, but name all the systems the original Ninja Gaiden was released on.
The original Ninja Gaiden?
Yeah.
I was Nintendo and Super Nintendo. If we're talking about just the original.
Yeah.
Because the original one, was released on Nintendo, and then it was re-released on Super Nintendo, but that was a trilogy.
Okay, all right.
And it's technically released again, if you want to be, I guess, extra specific, with the Nintendo Switch. You can get it on the Nintendo Switch through their Nintendo network.
I'm sorry to say this, but you're wrong.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm going to list them off. It's basically Nintendo Entertainment System. Obviously, you mentioned Super Nintendo. The Sega Game Gear and the Master System. And the Atari Lynx. How would you have known?
I knew of those, and I just didn't mention them.
Okay, all right.
Because they're not like the original, though. I mean, I guess they are. They're just a little different, I guess. But I understand.
What is your favorite Ninja Gaiden game of all time?
Ooh, of all time.
You know what? I'll tell you mine. And this might sound like an epic meme, but it isn't. And it is genuinely my favorite.
Okay.
I don't know if this counts as a Ninja Gaiden game, but it's got Ninja Gaiden in the title.
Uh-oh. No, we're not going to mention it.
Why can't we mention it? It's such a good game, all right? I love it.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm not going to mention it. I'll bleep it out, actually. But it's Yaiba. You know what? I love that game. I'm sorry. I love it. It's such a good game. All right, leave me alone. I love it.
Oh my god.
You didn't expect I would say that, would you? You didn't expect that.
No, I didn't expect until you started kind of leaning towards a certain direction.
Yeah, so what was your favorite Ninja Gaiden game of all time?
My favorite Ninja Gaiden game of all time. And that's very hard because I do like the NES ones, and I've mentioned already that I really enjoy the combat system of Razor's Edge. It's hard to pick, but I did enjoy any of the originals, basically. Any of the originals of Ninja Gaiden, the modern ones. So rather it be the original Ninja Gaiden back in 2004 or Ninja Gaiden Black or Sigma. I want to say Black probably has a special place in my heart, more than some of the other iterations, but any of those versions I probably enjoy the most.
Okay. Is there a reason for that?
There's something about that game that maybe to a lot of people didn't realize off the bat, especially when it came out. I think it was really ahead of its time. Those series of those modern, I guess you can say the Ninja Gaiden 1 series of games, what they did at that time that felt so ahead of its time was it was a very fast-paced action game with an open world. And I say open world very loosely, but it was like very open. It reminded me of a little bit of games that are very popular, like Zelda and things of that nature. You know, back in those days, it was like you're talking about probably like Zelda Ocarina of Time. So that Ninja Gaiden game was like, you know, it had this open space. You can always backtrack. You can go into other areas, unlock new weapons, go back and use those weapons or certain techniques to go to another area. It was very interesting on how that worked, and I enjoyed that a lot, actually. I just being able to something about backtracking to certain areas to accomplish a different goal seems pretty cool. Obviously there was limitations after certain chapters, but it was just a lot of fun.
I didn't expect that you'd mention Black, to be honest with you, because isn't Sigma just Black? Isn't it just the same game?
Yeah, essentially is. That's the thing. It is, but there's just some minor differences. But I think For me personally, it has, what do you call it? I have history with it because I remember being so excited to get the original and then also getting black during, the original Xbox releases. And I remember just going to the store. So it has a different feel to me, you know what I mean? Because I kind of grew up with Xbox consoles more than the Sony consoles at that time. And so me just kind of growing up and picking up these games, I was like, wow, like this is cool. And then they made a new iteration. So that's probably really why I hold such a special place for me.
Another question. I know this one might seem a bit odd. What's your favorite costume in the game for Ryu?
Oh, my favorite one in this collection would be, well, I guess in part 1, I'm okay with the original legendary Black Falcon outfit. It was really cool when it was introduced, but I like it probably more than any of the other outfits. In part 2, I'm gonna lean heavy on my I call it my Hayabusa outfit from the Dead or Alive franchise, which is a costume that's featured in Dead or Alive, and it was put into Sigma 2 on there. And then on 3, I really like the revamped version of the legendary Black Falcon outfit. I like that one, and I do like the other one where he's kind of like shirtless and he has the kunai on his legs and stuff. I really like that one too. But it's either on the third one, it's always a toss up between those two. They're just such cool costumes in the games, and it makes you feel like you're more of a super ninja depending on which one you like the most.
Yeah, definitely. Jumping off from that one, what would you say is your favorite weapon? Because I know there's a lot of weapons in this game. You can change them, but what would you say is your favorite? I'm gonna go first, and it's got to be a mix between the dual swords or the claws. Those are my two favorites.
Oh, the claws.
Yes. They're amazing.
I see. Yeah, I used to be such a huge fan of the claws, or I guess talons as they call it in the game. I used to be a huge fan of those, but and dual sword seems like the go-to for a lot of people at times. I don't know, man. I mean, there's so many good weapons on there. They're all fun. They all have their own combos, and it's fun learning the combos, and killing all these enemies as you master each weapon. But I lean heavy a lot on the dragon sword. I do like the dragon sword because it's kind of like my go-to in a lot of scenarios. It's a very well-rounded weapon, but I have to give some honorable mentions like the staff.
Okay, yeah, I forgot about the staff completely.
Yeah, the lunar staff, as well as the kusarigama. The kusarigama was really cool, which is like the ball and chain. I like that. Those three weapons right there are like my favorite ones.
I haven't gotten to the point where I'm replaying the games, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because I have a feeling that I'm going to enjoy it a lot more once I've got the skill tree kind of maxed out and things like that. You know what I mean? So at the moment, all I'm sticking with, dual swords and the talons. Because the finishers with the talons, they're so good. Mm-hmm. They're so good. There's something about it. Like when you kick someone's head off, like, what? I know it's a bit gory, but wow. I would say
it's a good feeling though, right?
It is, isn't it? It's just something about it.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, that feeling of being a super ninja, I genuinely feel as though I am just this powerful ninja that is just, it's so good. It is genuinely so good. But that being said, I know I was supposed to ask all these different questions, but you know what? I didn't, because I wanted to know more about the game. I want to ask you a question as a fan, not as, anything else, just as a fan. What was the moment where you thought, I'm going to stick with this series? Like, what was that moment where you fell in love with this series? Because you did mention you played the old school games, right? For me, that was when, I did play Razor's Edge way back when, and yes, it was the first game that Koei actually gave me a review code for, but it was actually the first time I played as Ryu in and it wasn't in Dead or Alive, it was in Warriors Orochi 3, because obviously I come from that sort of Musou background, that hack and slash style background, and I was like, oh my god, who's this badass ninja? And I'll be real with you, right? His moveset in that game, it was pretty OP. So for me, that was how I kind of, wanted to get into the game. But what was that moment for you? What was the moment in which you thought, I'm going to stick with this series for the long haul?
I think that moment for me was when the development team, when Team Ninja decided to implement so many different things to this character. It kind of gave him more of an identity, even though he's kind of a quiet ninja. He does speak from time to time, but it's his actions that really stood out to me. So for me, was seeing movement that you would see in some of the other games that they created, like Dead or Alive and whatnot, and as well as the Izuna drop. I mean, I think the Izuna drop is something that when you see and do and execute, the team made it in a way that makes a lot of sense. and feels really, really good. You know what I mean?
What do you mean by makes a lot of sense? Because
Yeah, in other words, when you do the combination to do an Izuna drop, something about that combination seems like, yeah, if I were going to do an Izuna drop, I think this is the way I would do it, you know?
okay.
And
All
and then
right.
when you actually and then when you actually see it, you're just the animation, the way it hits, the way it sounds. The team does a phenomenal job making you feel that. And as the skull shatters or you see blood go everywhere, it just feels good. You know, you feel like you've accomplished something just by executing certain combos at times.
Okay.
And because of that, it makes me feel like, yeah, I got to stick with this because that feeling that I get when I do those things, I want to feel that again. So I got to keep playing this game or this series of games.
You know what? I'll be real with you. I've never done an Izuna drop before.
Well, trust me when I tell you that when you do it, you're never going to want to stop doing it.
Is there a video on how to do an Izuna drop from you guys? Was that
Not from us officially, but it's not a bad idea. Maybe we'll put something
You
out.
should do that just so I can do it because I feel like so left out. I'm seeing all these people doing like Izuna drops online. And I'm like, oh man, I can't do that. I haven't done it in DOA. I haven't done it in Ninja Gaiden. The only game I've done it in is Warriors Orochi. And the reason why is because the combination is square, triangle, triangle, triangle. It's literally the easiest combination in that game. And I don't know how to do it in Ninja Gaiden. I don't know how to do it in DOA. It's so difficult. Last time when you were on the podcast last time, I mentioned that I was playing DOA with my mum. Just for the lols, you know, just to have fun and whatnot. And she didn't know how to play the game at all completely. And she ended up, by button mashing, doing an Izuna drop. And I still can't do it. So someone needs to teach me. I need to learn from you, and I need to learn from the best. So you better do a video. That's not a threat. I'm just saying you need to do a video for people like me that don't know how to do an Izuna drop.
I'll put it into the consideration box.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That makes me so happy just to know that. But that being said, thank you for coming on, Master. I think we had a really interesting discussion today about the game, but also about the origins of Ninja Gaiden and also how you got into the game as well, and also what you do. So thank you for coming on. I really do appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me on here. I mean, for those that are listening, I hope you guys enjoy this episode as well as you guys get a chance to check out the games. I mean, it's a lot of fun. I think it's at a very really good price, and I definitely suggest, not just for being a part of the team. I know it sounds biased, but it's a really good franchise. It's a lot of fun, especially as you master it.
And just so people don't think that you're biased or anything like that, I'm gonna say it. This game, with the price that it's at, you're getting 3 games pretty much for the price of 1. That's just insane. Go and buy it for the value proposition alone, because you're not gonna regret it. You've got 3 classic games on there that are, you know what, I would say games that have changed or sort of influenced a lot of hack and slash games in modern day. Right? So you're getting to experience that sort of epic origin of not just Ninja Gaiden, but of a lot of modern hack and slash. I'm not going to mention them because they come from other companies, but a lot of games today that you may have played started with Ninja Gaiden. And even, I'll say it even now, like there's a lot of games that have that sort of difficulty and a lot of games that have that sort of hack and slash mechanic and gameplay and stuff like that are, you know, are only happening because this game exists. So you kind of owe it to yourself to play this game, especially if you do like difficult games. Would you say, to end it off, would you say that people, because I know a lot of people are kind of looking towards what Team Ninja are doing because they've played games like Neo, would you say fans of Neo would like Ninja Gaiden?
I think they'll definitely appreciate its challenge. It's like you mentioned earlier, it's kind of the OG of challenging games. So anybody that's played Neo or games of that genre, I think they'll appreciate it and understand that, wow, this is kind of where it all came from.
Yeah, definitely. That's also another game that I can't play just because it's so difficult. But that being said, I want to thank our sponsors once again, Crunchyroll and Japan Crate. Like I said, it was always lovely to have you on, Master, especially after 9 years. I'm glad we done this and hopefully we can do this again. But yeah, bye. That's how I'm going to end it, just by screaming bye.
Thank you for having me, man.
Anytime.